The fear of being average, mediocre, common, regular, ordinary. If any of these words describe how you feel about yourself or your life, then this video is for you. The feeling of not being exceptionally bad or good at any task I tried, in other words being dead on mediocre, has followed me throughout my life, and when talking to others would be a source of my insecurity. Especially it became clear whenever I got asked this question. So tell me 3 interesting facts about yourself. Whenever I got asked that question, I'll have to scan through my life and try to find above average things to classify them as interesting. In 90% of the time, I couldn't. I would simply say boring facts like, I'm from Russia, I like to exercise, I enjoy hanging out with my friends. As you can probably tell, I wasn't a popular kid. Even though this question is designed to be an innocent icebreaker, an opportunity to sell yourself, it always made me feel like my life was boring, because I was too average, too normal, and too mediocre at everything I did. At some point in your life, you start realizing that being average at something is mostly looked down upon, and most often has a negative connotation, contradictory to the actual definition of the word average, which is neutral, and means that you simply fall within the middle range when compared to others on certain characteristics or quality. To better understand what it actually means to be the exceptional, or average, or worst, we gotta look at the everything curve, introducing you to the bell curve, also known as a normal distribution, which is a fundamental concept in statistics. If you ever done a stats class, you definitely would have seen it. In case you haven't, the bell curve works like this. Let's say you have 100 random people from a class. The majority of people will typically score around the average, forming the peak of the curve, while only a few exceptionally high or low performers exist, representing the tails of the curve. The tails are so thin because the only few people exist at those ends. Just think of your high school. There are many geniuses or dumbasses in your class. Majority of people, they're actually just kind of average. The beauty of this curve is that we can literally apply it to anything in this world. Height, shoe size, creativity, rolling a dice, sex time, and the list goes on and on. You're probably wondering, why am I showing this boring mess?
Why is this important?
Because this curve is a fundamental to our understanding of that feeling of being average at everything. Because it shows the reality that most of us are average at most things. Yes, you might be exceptional at one thing, but chances are that you aren't pre-average or below average at most other things. As harsh as it sounds, that's just nature of life. Because to become truly great at something, you have to dedicate time and energy. But we all have limited time and energy. Only few of us can become exceptionally good at one thing and anything at all. That brings me to the core fundamental of life, that everything has a trade-off. If you get drunk today, tomorrow is followed by the hangover. Starting your own business often means sacrificing your personal time. Skipping class means catching up on material later. This principle also applies to becoming exceptionally good at one thing, which requires sacrificing other areas of life. For example, look at Nikola Tesla, a man who changed the world of electricity. His dedication came at the cost of his social relationships, resulting in him dying alone and a virgin in a hotel. Exceptional athletes are most often shallow or lacking intellectual acuity. Most celebrities are probably just as clueless and f***ups in their personal lives as people who worship them. If you're the only person to exist, you're exceptional, you're the average, and you're the worst at the same time. Which brings me to the next point, the social media tyranny of exceptionalism. The sense of insecurity has dramatically increased in the last 20 years due to the nature of our technology and economic privilege. In a world where a million pieces of content are bombarding us at the speed of light, it's impossible to process everything. Therefore, the only content that breaks through and catches our attention are those very exceptional pieces of information. The best of the best, the worst of the worst. Those very thin ends of the tail. And the reason why media and publicity shows and promotes those two extremes is actually quite simple. It highlights the contrast to the majority of people's lives, and the contrast get views, views get money. Yet the vast majority of life continues to reside in the middle. So this thought of extreme information made us all believe that exceptional is the new normal. And after all the exceptional people say that we're all destined to do something great. Politicians say it, celebrities say it, billionaires say it, everyone says it.
You are going to be great.
But this kind of thinking is inherently contradictory. After all, if everyone was exceptional, then by definition, no one would be exceptional. And since all of us are rarely exceptional, we all feel pretty damn insecure and desperate to feel exceptional all the time, which is actually the root cause of our insecurities. As a result of this new norm in our culture today, we feel like we must always prove that we are special, unique, exceptional, constantly seeking validation and recognition. We pretty much stuck in a self-fulfilling prophecy of constantly seeing only exceptional humans and comparing our normal or boring lives to the highlights of theirs. And here I want to emphasize the word highlight, because despite the awareness of it only being the highlights, we tend to completely overlook and forget the boring aspects of their lives. This tendency leads us to low self-esteem and massive self-doubts, which repels us from achieving the excellence in the first place. Through this social media tyranny and the false perception of reality, being average has become a new standard of failure. The worst thing you can be is in the middle of the pack, in the middle of everything curve. You have to realize that the insecurity of being average only exists within the realm of comparison. Depending on your perspective, it can either serve you as a fuel for motivation, or is a poison to your self-esteem, manifesting in envy, jealousy, and even self-hatred. Statistically speaking, pretty much all of us are in the middle of the bell curve almost all the time in almost everything we do. Sure, you might be a world-class basketball player, but yet you might be struggling with an unhappy family, impending divorce, and an alcohol addiction.
I was supposed to be great.
A lot of people are afraid to accept mediocrity, because they believe if they accept being average, then they'll never achieve anything great, they'll never improve, and their life is meaningless. They often say things like, if I accept I'm average, then I'll never achieve anything great, I'll have no motivation to improve myself or do something great, even though I'm destined for it. But the problem with that thinking is that exceptional people don't become exceptional simply because they believe they are. It's actually quite the opposite. They become the best because they're obsessed with improvement, which stems from their belief that they're not great at all, they're mediocre, that they're average, and there lies endless opportunities to be better. This is the great irony of ambition. If you wish to be smarter and more successful than everybody else, you will always feel like a failure. If you wish to be the most loved and popular, you will always feel alone. And if you wish to be the most powerful and admired, you'll always feel weak and impotent. Mark Manson. But the main problem with accepting mediocrity has nothing to do with one quality of life, but rather has to do with their ego. Ego craves being superior to others, aspiring to be the exceptional person who gets all the attention and fame. It leads you to believe that you deserve to be the best, purely because of the insecurity of not being one. And all the social media bullshit about everyone destined to be great is just an ego joke, to make you feel better about yourself for a couple of minutes while you sit at your office job having a midlife crisis. This false desire of exceptionalism drives people crazy and often leads them to do weird and disingenuous things. This may include desire to get rich from quick pyramid schemes, volunteering in Africa to save starving babies, achieving academic excellence, or even engaging in acts of terrorism. The key fundamental here is to accept the mundanity of life and the boring and average aspects that come with it. You might never be exceptional and might remain average in most, if not all, aspects of your life. But accepting these facts alone will relieve the constant pressure to be always something amazing. The stress and anxiety of feeling inadequate will disappear, and the knowledge and acceptance of your own mundane existence will actually free you to accomplish what you truly wish to accomplish, with no judgments and no superficial expectations. You'll no longer compare yourself to the other exceptional people and feel better about your life and the progress you have made. You'll see that everyone has their own path and they will all truly average at most things. Here I want to emphasize this, that I'm not saying that you shouldn't believe in yourself or never aim for excellence just because it's not statistically probable. Acceptance of mediocrity shouldn't come from low self-esteem, rather it should come from acknowledgement of the inherent nature of life. And I want you to understand this, that striving for mediocrity as a goal is not desirable, but being faced with mediocrity as an outcome is okay. For example, if you enjoy reading and you want to improve your reading time, strive for excellence, but be okay with average results. Because achieving excellence takes great effort and a long time, and way before you reach that point, you would have had thousands of mediocre results. The better you get at doing something, the more average the results seem to you. Because by mastering a task, the only way to truly achieve excellence is the acceptance of being average, creating that space for continuous growth and the pursuit of true excellence. Otherwise, you get complacent and stay at the same skill level for years. Also, be aware of your own mind. It can be your greatest power or your worst enemy. Our minds trick us into thinking that if one person is exceptionally good at one thing, then they must be good at everything else. This is called halo effect.
My psychiatrist says I suffer from the halo effect, the tendency of widows to idealize their dead husbands.
Which is a cognitive bias where our overall impression of a person influences how we feel and think about their character. It's like a halo of a positivity that surrounds a person due to a single positive attribute or characteristic. Just think of someone who is highly skilled at talking to people and seem confident. They might not be happy in their personal life and worry about what others think of them. Just because they're good at one thing doesn't mean everything in their life is great. But as I mentioned earlier, everything in life comes with a trade-off, so next time you feel very average in comparison to someone else, try to remind yourself that the halo effect might be in play. Here's my mantra: accept the mediocrity, but strive to be the best version of yourself. That way you'll begin to appreciate your life basics experiences and measure your success through a new, healthier standard defined by your own values rather than the society's superficial metrics. Seems a bit boring, doesn't it? Well, that's because these things are average. Maybe they're average for a reason, because they're what actually matter.